Greetings, brothers. I'm just back from a GT and I feel like I may have my fingers on the pulse, so today felt like a great time to do a competitive review of the Blood Angels trends since like 6 months ago when we did it shortly after the Codex was released. A lot has changed. We're seeing sort of stabilized Liberator Assault Group and Angelic Inherters lists. So let's get into this week's tactics video. So thanks so much for being here, and if you're new to the channel, my name is John, and most weeks I'm going to give you tips and tricks to make you a better Blood Angels player. So today obviously we're talking about competitive trends, and the goals for this video are going to be simple, right? We're going to discuss what lists, attachments and combos are typically seen across the current Blood Angels meta. This weekend, in fact, there were 39 Blood Angels lists taken to competitive events. In this video we're going to cover top 6, and that does include me sneaking in by the skin of my teeth at number 6. So we've got Liberator Assault Group by Almandor. I'm not going to try and pronounce everyone's names. 5 wins, 0 losses. Noah, Zach, Adam and Josh all playing Inheritors. 5-1, 5-1, 4-1 and 3-0-2. And then me sneaking in with an Inheritors with 3-2. Not my best performance, but for context, I guess I was the best in... There was 4 Blood Angels players at the GT that I was at. I was the best in faction. So I feel like I said, maybe my finger is somewhat on the pulse. I know what to expect. I know what we've been dealing with this week. There's 8 other players out there that achieved 3-2 this week. 6 of them were running lag, and 2 of them were running Angelic Inherters. Unfortunately, our other detachments suck. Apparently other detachments suck as bad as my spelling. There you go. And then there's a link here if you want to check out the event tracker list. You can do that. You'll have to type it in because you can't click links in the video. But yeah, so if you break that down then, out of like 8 plus 6, that would be, 14 players. And we've basically got... something like 7 of them. Oh, it's exactly 7 and 7. So 50% split between Liberator Assault Group and Angelic Inheritors, but Liberator Assault Group were the only list to pick up a tournament win this week. Cool. And what about overall stats? So overall this week there were 83 wins and 90 losses for Blood Angels, and that puts us down here somewhere middle of the pack with a 48% win rate. Death Guard are sneaking in their new codex, and the Emperor's Children has arrived very close to the top. World Eaters are very marginally better than us apparently. And at this event, what did I beat? I beat World Eaters. I beat Custodes, where they are don't see them, just slightly above us as well. And the third one that I beat was actually Blood Angels. So I basically beat everybody around our level. I lost against Knights. They are at a 57% win rate. I lost against Eldari, who are somewhere... Oh, they're top. Oh, of course they're top. Okay, so I lost against the... Okay, this... I don't feel so bad now. Cool. Okay. Cool. So Blood Angels, 48%. I lost against 1 and 2. Right. So let's talk about Almandor Perez, 5-0 Liberator Assault Group, 2,000 points. What are we seeing? We're seeing like the Rage Captain, Combi Weapon Lieutenant, and this is an interesting list where it went Tep Marine, Tep Marine, Tep Marine, and I can only assume it's with a Ballistus, with a Ballistus, with a Ballistus. So you just have 3 Ballistuses, all buffed with a Tep Marine. That gives them some melee, it gives them some lone ops, it gives them some actions, it gives them a lot of hitting on 2s and a lot of repairing. And then Tep Marines get pretty good in combat, I suppose, when the Ballistuses die. We have 2 Impulsors, and I think what would be inside these Impulsors would be Blade Guards. They are basically unled Blade Guard squads, I imagine. We have 10 Jump Intercessors, 5 Jump Intercessors, 5 Jump Intercessors. Obviously, two Impulsors full Blade Guard, another 6 Blade Guard, because they are just good and cheap right now, especially in Liberator Assault Group. A squad of Incursors to give +1 to hit. I'm not entirely sure what they're doing. I guess maybe they're just infiltrating. A squad of Scouts for scoring, and then a squad of Stern Guard. Stern Guard get picked up a lot. They have devastating wound potential. They're not too bad in melee, so they do a little bit of everything, the Stern Guard. So a lot of drops in this list, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 unique units. Lots of, like, I was trying to hit 14 different unique units for my Angelic Inheritors list. 18 means that there's always something there to do actions, probably Tech Marines, probably Scouts, probably Incursors. A lot of killing power with those 18 Blade Guards, especially with the Strength 7, really meaningful breakpoint. Because Strength 7 means if you have any +1 to wound, you wound pretty much everything on 4s. Blade Guard get a lot of attacks. So yeah, it's a meaningful list, and then you've got those Jump Intercessors as well, which is Mortal Wound Put Out, and quite a bit of mobility. So Liberator Assault Group seems to be doing better, straying away from all the unique Blood Angels units, and taking, hey, camera focus, woo, straying away from all the expensive units like Sangre Guard and Death Company that we're just not seeing at the moment. Like those units are not being seen very often in any, well, Sangre Guard maybe, but Death Company not at all. And it seems like with the drops of points of Blade Guard, we're actually going to cover another Liberator Assault Group list a little bit later in the video that also took 18 Blade Guard, that also won a tournament. So there's something to be said about lots of Blade Guard potentially being one of the most meta choices in Liberator Assault Group at the moment. Let's talk about Angelic Inherters. So Angelic Inherters, we want to have lots more characters. The downside of that is we have much less units. And mostly, the way you make Angelic Inheritors work is double Vindicator. It's kind of a staple. You kind of need it. Because you just don't punch up very well in this detachment at all, because you don't have big units and you don't have +2 strength. And then Inceptors. And Inceptors, I think, are the missing piece of the puzzle from the list that I went 3 and 2 with, right? Like, I think if you want to play in Angelic Inheritors to the highest levels and go better than 3 or 2, I think you need those 6 Plasma Inceptors. And I think the reason you need them is because you put them down, you oath the moment, that's rerolling all hits. You twin linked, so you can basically reroll all wounds. And you can +1 CP for sustained as well. So and then deep strike within 6, and then pick them up back again at the end of the opponent's fight phase. So you can do so much with the Inceptors, and I think every list in the top, every Angelic Inheritors list above me was using Plasma Inceptors. I personally don't like Plasma Inceptors. I seem to roll really badly when it comes to hazardous and always kill my guys. But if you're good at playing Plasma Inceptors and you like them, then I think this is the missing piece of the puzzle. I would say that the way you start an Angelic Inheritors list is literally 2 Vindicator tanks, 3 3-man Sangre Guards, and the Inceptors, right? And probably the Infiltrators as well. Like, there's so many auto-includes. So we've got Dante, the Sanguinar. The Apothecary is going to be with the Desolation Marines to keep them alive, to reroll ones, to hit and wound indirect, and they'll just be a nuisance. You got the 2 captains, each with a Sangguard. You got the Combi Weapon Lieutenant, who can come back alive. In practice, I actually felt like I didn't really need this, but we'll talk about that later. You got a unit for sticky objectives, and then you don't really have, like in this list, you don't really, like, you have no scouts in this list, in fact. So this list might actually struggle a little bit with scoring, right? Like, there isn't a lot of units here to do actions. Very, like, a lot of weight on this lieutenant, potentially, or the intercessors, potentially. So, yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10... Sanguinar 11, like, it's 11 unique activations versus 18 in the other list. Like, it is much harder to score. Dante +3 Sangre Guard in this list also really struggle to punch up. Being that, like, the Sangre Guard with Dante will just be strength 6. So if you come up against anything that's toughness 12, you have, like, a real roadblock there. Even high toughness, even anything over toughness 7, honestly. What is that with this camera today? You're going to have some serious problems, I feel like. So that's the first Angelic list, 5 and 1. The second Angelic list, 5 or 1, also took Dante, a captain, the Combi Weapon Lieutenant, the Sanguinar, so those 4 characters are the same. This time we have a Judiciar and a Tech Marine. We keep the Intercessors, we add an Impulsor, we add some of those cheap Blade Guard, we keep the Plasma Inceptors, we lost the Infiltrators, but we've got Incursors. We now have 9 Sangre Guard in just 2 squads, a 6 and a 3. I don't know which way they were placed, but honestly, in this detachment, I would probably place a 6 with the Jump Pack Captain, just because that gives them strength 7 on the charge, which I think is more meaningful. You got the Blazing Icon there as well, which means they can't be overwatched. And then you've got the 2 Vindicator tanks. And I do think somewhat Angelic Inheritors is carried by these 2 Vindicator tanks. Without them, you really struggle to do meaningful damage. because most of your units are small. This list is sort of like a difference to normal, where like normally in Inheritors we see 3 squads of 3 Sangre Guard. This is a list that takes the 6. I find playing 6 Sangre Guard very difficult. They are super expensive and they're toughness 4, which means they die to most firepower fairly easily. There's a lot of enemies as well. Like I played Eldari, they got anti-infantry 3 up, anti-infantry armigers, they got anti-fly 2 up, right? These guys die pretty darn quick. So I'm not a huge fan of running them in 6, but I can see why you could do it. A low number of activations again, but again, went 5 and 1. Very tricksy. I think the Inceptors really denying probably your opponent's scoring helps an absolute ton. And list number 3 for Angelic Inheritors, we've got, Captain, Sanguinor, Dante. This time we have a captain on foot as well, with that enhancement to give the 6-inch scout move, and we've kept the combi weapon lieutenant who comes back to life. We've got company heroes, and you guys know how much I love them, so the company heroes with that captain to give the 6-inch move. The Inceptors again, the double Vindicator again. This time we get double scouts for some more scoring, same 9 Sangre Guards, same infiltrators. Again, not a huge number of activations, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. So a low number of activations, but did very well. 4 wins, 1 losses. Yeah, so the missing piece of the puzzle for me in this sense was probably like the Plasma Inceptors, right? Like I assume that Plasma Inceptors are used to pressure the backfield, pressure anywhere you can't get to, and also deal with fight first. That was a problem that I had playing Angelic Inheritors this weekend, was I was up against some enemies with fight first. When the enemy lines up a bunch of fight first units behind a wall that are pretty much unchargeable, you can't get line of sight on them with a Vindicator tank, they've got everything screened in the backfield, that's when the Inceptors come invaluable. They pop down and they kill elite infantry, especially if they're overcharged. 12 shots potentially from the 6, sustained hits, re-rolling hits, twin linked, re-rolling to wound, AP3, 3, they are elite killing infantry machines, those Inceptors. So, if you got some value out of this video so far, please do consider subscribing. My name is John. Like I said, I'm here every week making all manner of Blood Angels videos and reviewing your community submitted lists. I do that as well. So, yeah, let's move on. Josh, I'm just going to say first names. 3 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses, Angelic Inheritors. Now, this one is a little bit different, right? Blood Angels captain on foot with Rage Fueled Warrior. Hold on, this cannot be Angelic Inheritors. How the hell has he got Rage Fueled Warrior? This must be Liberator Assault Group. I have picked this up wrong. So this is Liberator Assault Group. Ooh, so it actually means more people were playing Liberator Assault Group this week than we thought. So Liberator Assault Group has been deemed the stronger detachment by many of the community. So Liberator Assault Group, a Rage Fueled captain, Fight First Terminator Squad. It's actually a first 10-man Terminator Squad. Don't see that very often. Captain with a jump pack. A Fight First Judisaur, probably with 6 Blade Guard. The Combi Weapon Lieutenant without the Revive, obviously, because wrong detachment. Jump pack Intercessors. A Lancer. I actually played against a Blood Angels player that had a single Lancer this weekend, and that was actually more tricky than I thought. He's got the Inceptors in there. He's got the Infiltrators. He's got ATVs and Outrider. He's got just 3 Sangre Guards. Obviously, the Terminator is going to try and do some of that heavy lifting with the Fight First. The Scouts, and I suppose the Terminators are somewhat, a little bit, not much, but a tiny bit more durable when they do get shot, because T5 versus T4, it's maybe just 1 on the wound roll, but it might be meaningful in some situations. And then the 5 Stern Guard. Like I said, Stern Guard seem to be a pretty good all-round unit. So, we haven't really seen Blood Angels do too well with Terminator bricks, but this was undefeated. Yeah, I did have 2 draws, which is probably a low percentage chance to happen at a tournament, but undefeated nonetheless. So, big 10-man Terminator squad, and the reason I think you take the captain with the Terminators is obviously for the Fight First. Personally, I would probably prefer taking the Chaplain for the permanent +1 to wound. Saves yourself a little bit of points, but I suppose the captain gives you a free stratagem. Maybe you're going to Armor of Contempt those Terminators, and also you can reroll charges. Innately with the captain, Terminators are slow. You're going to be making somewhat longer charges than the Sangre Guard, but you can also advance and charge in this detachment. So maybe the combination of advance and charge and rerolling charges helps make those Terminators more viable. So that's list number 5, and list number 6, it's me. So I played Liberator Assault Group. Sorry, I played Angelic Inherters, and I tried to get 14 unique drops, and the way I did that was cheap characters. The Blade Guard Ancient, actually loved this guy for 45 points. Remember, you can loan up in this detachment with an 18. I had 2 captains and Dante, each with a squad of Sangre Guard. Now, my experience tells me that these guys are brutally good against anything like T6 and lower, and really bad against anything like T7 and higher. The Chaplain was with the Blade Guard to give +1 to wound, because I felt Blade Guard in this detachment at strength 5 wasn't that great, and honestly the +1 to wound it still wasn't that great. I lost against a lot of armor, and Blade Guard do die much faster than the Sangre Guard, so I guess if you're going to run Blade Guard, that's probably why people are running 18 of them. The Combi Weapon Lieutenant without the enhancement was actually fine. Like, I think he only died in like 2 games, and I think, but you know, the games he died in, the game was already won. The Tech Marine was somewhat useful for keeping my Land Raider alive and giving it +1 to hit. My Land Raider did blow up a bunch of stuff. And the one thing I did like about having a Land Raider in Angelic Inheritors was it meant Dante and 3 Sangre Guards started on the board, along with the Blade Guard and the Chaplain. So they were all inside Land Raider every game, and that just let... The one thing I also noticed in Angelic Inheritors is, like, you have no advance in charge. So you're very much limited sometimes by your 12-inch move. So what I would do, I would be just drive my Land Raider forward, bring it in, and then that would give me, in turn 2, like a really good base for where my Sangre Guard could basically disembark 3 and jump 12, and then my Land Raider could move 10, disembark the Blade Guard 3, and charge. So I had 2 potential easy charges in turn 2 in pretty much every game from that Land Raider. So I liked the Land Raider in terms of like the staging platform. I liked its firepower. It definitely blew stuff up against the game against Custodes. It went to town. I think I used Sustained on it a couple of times. I think I used Overwatch a couple of times, killed some Eldari. Outriders in this detachment I found a little bit underwhelming. I mean, they sat on points and held them, but their actual damage output, again, strength 5, felt kind of weak. So the Scouts, I don't think the Scouts... I think the Scouts actually did do melee a couple of times, but they just bounced off. They did nothing. I actually ended up charging a Knight, and they did nothing. I think the difference is I played Knights... I played against Knights before with Scouts and Liberator Assault Group when they had no AP, and they were more meaningful just because they could be strength 6. Strength 4... fighting into Knights is just tragic. You're only winning on 6s. I think I had like 20 attacks. I don't think I did a single point of damage. And I think I left the Knight on 2 wounds across multiple turns. It was really bad. The Vindicator tanks are very good, but also very bad. Like, sometimes they pop off, and sometimes they just don't. So, like, they literally swing from like 3 damage. 3 damage was what I got when I shot like Canis Rex or something, and then I shot a Forge Fiend, which I didn't need to do a lot of damage against. I do 22 damage. So they literally swing giantly. They are the ultimate casino cannon. If they pop off at the right moments, you will do devastating damage. If they don't pop off, then you will do terrible damage. And I think, personally, I didn't really like playing Vindicator tanks because I felt bad. Like, again, the game against the Custodes player, and actually the game against the other Blood Angels player, I used the sustained hits on the Vindicator tanks, and it was disgusting, right? Like, I just killed like 400 points of models with 1 round of shooting from a Vindicator coming into reserve that you cannot screen against, and it's absolutely devastating. And then in another game, I used them against the big Knights when I really need them to do damage, because I've just told you my Sangre Guard can't do damage, and that's in a 3-man squad of Sangre Guard, you can't meaningfully damage a Knight. I think Dante +3, even with the lethal hits and the sustain strat, did maybe like 8 damage into a Knight, right? So, like, you know that they aren't going to really work against a 26 wound Knight. So I need my Vindicators to pop off, and they just didn't. I mean, if they'd popped off in that game and done 22 damage and 1 round of shooting, then all of a sudden that game is probably much, much different. But there's so much RNG in them. I preferred playing in summer when I was able to use Liberator Assault Group with the Death Company, when they had all the Power Fists and I could do reliable, meaningful plays, whereas the Vindicator tanks, to me anyway, maybe I'm wrong, Vindicator tanks aren't a skillful unit, right? They're a unit that you just come in and cross your fingers. And yes, sometimes they are amazing. They are literally the best thing in the world. And sometimes they are just not. And I guess if you go to enough tournaments, or if enough people take 2 of them to the tournaments, you will get occasionally, like once every few weeks, someone will just have them pop off at the right point and someone will win a tournament. Doesn't necessarily mean to me that they are great. They are good, right? Like, and if you're and every Angelic Inheritors list had them, right? So I feel like they're carrying Angelic Inheritors to a certain degree. Whether or not I'll do them again, I think I'm moving on, right? I've done Gladius, I've done Liberator Assault Group, I've done Angelic Inheritors, I've gone 3 and 2 with each of those detachments this edition. And then I went 5 and 0 with Sons of Sanguinius. So I think I just want to do a new detachment now, right? This edition's like 2 years old, so it's probably works out. I've done like 6 months of each detachment, give or take. So I'm ready to do something new. Maybe Stormlands, maybe Iron Storm, maybe that Elder army I bought, but more likely more Blood Angels in a different configuration. But yeah, this list actually, like, I'm trying to think if I remove the Land Raider and put in the Plasma Inceptors, would that have been the difference? Now, the reason the Land Raider was in, that I was playing against Death Guard before this tournament, and I was playing against World Eaters before this tournament, and they were destroying me with Forge Fiends and Plagueburst Crawlers. Both those units are disgustingly good at killing infantry, and they're very, very good at killing 3-wound Sangre Guard. So I felt like I had to take the Land Raider. It was kind of a Taylor choice to take it, to counter those, and I actually played against one of those armies and I beat it, arguably because of the Land Raider, but it did not help into those giant 58% win rates, like the Eldari, like the Knights. The Land Raider wasn't too bad against the Knights, but it wasn't an optimal thing, and I was on the back foot from that game very early on. I'm going to break those down over the next couple of weeks, but yeah, so I think, based on my experience of playing the 2 Vindicator tanks and playing some other shooting, a Land Raider and a Ballistus Dreadnought, my thought is, if you want to make this detachment work, you need the Vindicator tanks, and you need the Inceptors, and you probably do want one more shooting unit in there. I know some people were using Desolation Marines. I think you could do a Ballistus Dreadnought. I think you could do a Predator. I think, hell, you could do a 3rd Vindicator if you really wanted to. But I think your Sangre Guard, your Blade Guard, your Outriders, they will all struggle, and you can only really make one effective charge in any turn, because without +1 to wound, and that was the reason that I put a Chaplain in here on the Blade Guard, without +1 to wound on these Sangre Guard units, and or Lethal Hits and Lance, right? Without that strat, Focus Fury, they do not do the damage you need them to do. There's no weight of attacks in here, right? Like, Sangre Guard plus the Captain is like 17 or 18 attacks. Sangre Guard with Dante is 20 attacks, but less strength. So there's no real meaningful weight of attacks. Yeah, you do get some rerolls to hit, so, I mean, you do get a good number of hits, but you're probably looking at like 15 or 16 hits. Maybe on a poor roll, it's like 13 or 14. That's not meaningful if your opponent has a 4-up invuln, because you're basically saying 6 are going through, and if your opponent has any way to -1 damage, then it's super unmeaningful. And that's why I think this list is somewhat carried by Vindicators and Plasma Inceptors. And by not having the Plasma Inceptors, I probably did pretty well, actually, to do 3 and 2, right? Like, based on the 48% win rate faction-wide for Blood Angels. So let's try and gather everything we've talked about so far together into thoughts. And looking at all the lists, right, from Angelic Inheritors, right? The Combi Weapon Lieutenant was the most popular character. He's very, very useful, especially if the enemy are ever going to be standing on an objective in the middle of the board, on their side of the map, then making that reroll 1s to wound is very, very good when you've got those Vindicator tanks, because typically Vindicators are wounding on 2s or 3s, so reroll 1s to wound is massive. Every list that performed above mine ran those 6 Plasma Inceptors. I'm not a fan, but obviously there's a very strong synergy in this detachment with the Plasma Inceptors. The double Vindicator tank is crazy popular. It's obviously very, very good. Lots of the times you'll be wounding on 2s or 3s, but the melee in this detachment I find very good into T6 or less, but massively weak into anything above, right? Like, your melee just will not punch up. And that's something that I don't know if I feel like the same in Liberator Assault Group, and I guess the reason that you don't feel that in Liberator Assault Group is because everything feels like it can punch up a little bit, especially if you're running a lot of cheap jump intercessors, which you don't really see jump intercessors in Angelic Inheritors, but in Liberator Assault Group, cheap jump intercessors will always punch up, will always do mortal wounds, and that extra damage just adds up over time. Transports are also fairly uncommon in Angelic Inherters, and the Sanguiner does appear in 75% lists. Again, I find the Sanguiner very, very good in Angelic Inheritors. I think he's much better than he is in Liberator Assault Group. But he is only strength 6. So once again, you're really reliant on rolling 6s, which is problematic. Okay, so my personal thoughts, right? I found it quite hard to get the solid value out of the Outriders and the Blade Guard in this attachment. As in the meta, I felt like I was fighting a lot of enemies that had high toughness, and Strength 5 just doesn't cut that. And you can't use lethal hits and lance on these guys because it's needed on the Sanguinary Guard in this attachment. So I actually found the melee in this detachment very hard to do, which is why I say this detachment is somewhat carried by its vehicles. My list also had no answer, like literally none to fight first. None of my melee units is big enough to meaningfully tank incoming damage. None of my melee units I can throw in, like a unit of jump intercessors, to do grenades and then do impact damage on the mortals. So, I just don't have a way to deal with fight first. That's where I think those Plasma Inceptors could be very useful. Fight first guys hidden behind a wall that I need to get through. Maybe there's a small space I can drop in the 6-inch Plasma Inceptors and obliterate them. And the one time I actually did engage in a big fight first unit, I shot them. Excuse me. I shot them as best I could. I charged them with Dreadnought, I charged them with the Sanguinary Guard, and actually on the fight first they still killed all 3 of the Sanguinary Guard, leaving just the Captain, and the Captain was not meaningful enough with a Dreadnought with no AP to, finish off the rest of the unit. So basically the one time I went into fight first, it was an absolute disaster. I couldn't deal with it. I've got more coming in my video where I played against the Blood Angels Liberator Assault Group detachment. That was my first game. Against another player who actually finished right behind me in the tournament listings. He was the highest placing behind me playing Liberator Assault Group, and he actually had 3 fight first. So I was really actually a little bit worried about that, because I was thinking, I don't know how I deal with 3 fight first. I guess the way you deal with 3 fight first is bloody Vindicator tanks. We'll talk about that when I go into my Liberator Assault Group versus Angelic Inherters breakdown, which is like the next video I'm going to make. Overall, I actually averaged 31 out of 40 for secondaries. I actually found that 45 point Ancient very, very useful. I had no idea when I put him in my list that he actually had a 4-up invulnerable, but go figure, he's a Blade Guard, of course, right? I just put him in the list because he was 45 points, and I had like some points left at the end, and I didn't feel like taking any of the enhancements, and I thought to myself, like, I will just spend those 45 points on an Ancient because I know I can low op him for 1 CP, so he'll definitely be able to sabotage or actions or whatever. But then he turned out that he had a 4-up in fun save because he's a Blade Guard, and I was actually really surprised. So 31 out of 45, and that actually included one really bad scoring game, which was against the Knights. So my secondaries were on point in this detachment, despite having less units. I mean, I did aim for 14 unique individual 14 individual units, and that seems to be a good number for me. And I guess that's probably why Liberator Assault Group does very well, because most of the time people are running Liberator Assault Group, they're doing it with cheap generic Space Marine units, so they have 16, 18 unique drops, right? The Tech Marine did pretty good. He becomes surprisingly good when the vehicle dies with the rerolls 1s and hit and wound. He's actually quite a good character. In Angelic Inheritors, I actually really liked him. I can't decide, though, if I think Vindicator tanks are fun, right? Like I said, one game they do 22 damage, the next game they do 3. Against infantry with blast, they're bloody devastating. I didn't feel massively skillful when I'm using them. I always put one in reserve. And in a couple of my games, they just blew the opponent to shreds. And I just felt kind of bad. Because, like, one guy was like, how many strength 14 attacks at AP3? And I was like, yeah, that's the number, because I've, D6 plus 3 plus blast plus sustained plus rerolling all hits, and then you're studing the objective, which means I'm wounding you in 2s, rerolling 1s, like that many strength 14. Yeah. I also felt like I was very often able to keep my lieutenant alive because of his reactive move. I like that little combi weapon lieutenant, and occasionally he does a couple of dev wounds. He's pretty cool. Dante's Battleshock Aura could have saved me in 2 games. It could have saved me, but in the whole event, it did nothing. The giant knight that was in my deployment zone, Dante Battleshock -1, does nothing. Into the Demon Prince that's trying to do -1 damage, Dante's Battleshock does nothing. I did sustain on his pistol a few times. Like, I rolled a few 6s for his pistol this event, better than I've done before. But I swear to you, he never killed more than a single model. Maybe like one time he killed a single model, even when I sustained his pistol. I think this might be the last event I'm running Dante at for a while. I like his new model. His new rules just keep coming, and for 130 points, I guess he's fine. He's fine. He's not great, he's fine. I wish he'd had a sweep attack. The Land Raider, while unorthodox, actually gave me some more extra movement that I really struggled with previously using Angelic Inherters, right? The thing about Liberator Assault Group is it's quite forgiving, you know, like you're behind a wall, the enemy are quite far away, you're like, oh well, cool, I'll move 12, and then I don't want to do an 8-inch charge, so I'll just advance and charge, and then most of the time I'll probably guarantee that. Whereas sometimes Angelic Inherters, if you're hiding behind a wall and you need to hide because you're not durable, you can leave yourself with quite long, quite difficult charges that can sometimes fail. Failed charges for Blood Angels usually means you're sat in the middle of the board and you're just going to get shot, and when you get shot, you're usually toughness 4, so you don't survive very long. So the Land Raider, while unorthodox, was actually pretty useful, but I guess it wasn't quite as effective as maybe having those Plasma Inceptors, and then Land Raiders are somewhat vulnerable as well because they don't have an invulnerable save. Vulnerable because lack of invulnerable, right? So like if the enemy's got some really high AP stuff, like the Eldar have the fire dragons with those crazy fusion pikes, then you've got some real problems. And in the Land Raider in the game against Eldar, it exploded and probably killed more Eldar with the explosion than it did with the rest of the time it was in the game. So that's my thoughts on Angelic Inheritors. I wanted to touch real quick. I saw this, a few people had been sharing this. This was a 6-0 2 weeks ago with Liberator Assault Group. And you can see here, remember the other Liberator Assault Group we looked at the start of the video with like 3 Ballistices and Tech Marines and 2 Impulsors and Jump Intercessors and 3 units of Blade Guard. This time it's like a Captain and a Chaplain with Fight First, the Combi Weapon Lieutenant. Again, we've got lots of drops, right? 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, 15, 16 drops. Like I said, if you've got 14 drops, you're feeling pretty good. So 16 drops, lots of Blade Guard, Ballistas' Dreadnoughts, Outriders, which are strength 7, which is a meaningful break point. Jump Intercessors with Immortals, you've got 25 of them, useful for Fight First. You can see why people are thinking Liberator Assault Group is better. It's a little bit easier to play, and it's a little bit more forgiving, I guess, if you're using all the cheap Space Marine stuff. The sad part of this is there isn't a single Blood Angels unit in this list. Like, there is nothing from our Codex in this list. In the other one that did well, they went 5-0. Where is it? It's this one. It has nothing from our Codex again. So let's talk a little bit about Liberator Assault Group, and then let's talk about our Codex, right? Liberator Assault Group certainly is is the more played detachment, or the higher ranking one this weekend. It was like, what did I say, 8 against 6? It's easier to play. But ironically, Mephiston and the Sanguinar are much better in Angelic Inheritors. I played against Mephiston and the Sanguinar in the Liberator Assault Group. My opponent had both these characters in Liberator Assault Group, and they both massively underperformed, and they both massively whiffed. These characters are not good in Liberator Assault Group, in my opinion. In the high-performing Liberator Assault Group lists, we're now seeing 18 Blade Guard, Ballistas, Dreadnought, Scouts, Outriders, and Impulsors. I don't think there's any surprises here. These are probably, point for point, some of the best units we can field. Unled trading units kick ass in Liberator Assault Group. So basic units go to strength 6. Strength 6. This shouldn't say toughness at all. Sometimes when I'm making these slides, I end up making them pretty late at night. Strength 6 or strength 7. And that's a very meaningful breakpoint for lands, right? Or for +1 to wound, right? Yeah, like toughness 10 stuff, you get to wound on 4s. Toughness 12 stuff, you get to wound on 4s. The Combi Weapon Lieutenant was also in both Liberator Assault Group lists, despite not being able to come back to life. I still think he is good and useful. In fact, I think his melee is probably just better, because his melee in Angelic Inheritors is just strength 4, which is underwhelming. With this Liberator Assault Group, it's more attacks, it's strength 6, it's sustained, it's probably good. And then Stern Guard are often picked. in either detachment, right? Because they are just versatile, they shoot, and they also provide some melee because they get good number of attacks. They might even be better in Liberator Assault Group just because their melee goes up that additional strength. So if we compare this to what happening 6 months ago, and I did make a video 6 months ago just after the Codex came out that was like competitive trends with Blood Angels, and back then 10 Death Company with Lamartas was a popular choice. It's not a popular choice anymore. It's not picked at all. Mephiston was also a reasonably popular choice 6 months ago after the Codex came out when he got all the new rules. He was almost in every list. He's not in any of the lists that did the top 6. And I mean, I think as much as he does have good rules, he did go up in points, and he is also very good at whiffing. In that, like, he just doesn't really work in Liberator Assault Group because you only, like, your charge, you only have 6 attacks, you roll a couple of misses, you fail a couple of wounds, and it's like 3 damage with, like, three saves on his fight first. That's what you have to deal with, and for his damage, he's probably going to roll a 1. So he kills like 1 model for 135 points. He's not included. Battle line units are very, very rare. 6 months ago it was Assault Intercessors, now it's the Sticky Objective Intercessors. There are literally no lists that include Death Company on foot, either of the 2 Death Company Dreadnoughts, the Death Company Captain, the Astaroth, or the Sanguinary Priest. None of those are included, which is like half of our Codex. Ball Predators are also not really seen now since they got that 10 points increase. Dante does appear in half of the lists, so some people do still see some value in him, but typically he's more commonly included in Inheritors. But I actually think this might be more of a Sanguinary Guard problem than Dante, right? Like, we can all agree Sanguinary Guard are crazy expensive at 130 points for 3. If you don't think they're expensive at 130 points for 3, look at those new Death Shroud Terminators, right? Death Shroud Terminators now can arrive like 6 inches away from the opponent. If you are 6 inches away and you have a charge reroll available, that is a 90% chance of a successful charge, right? Death Guard Terminators are toughness 7, so it's 3 more on the toughness. They are strength 8 before you charge, like just strength 8 by default in their detachment. They have lethal hits. They're going to -1 your toughness, and they're going to -1 your armor save. And I feel like they have one more rule as well. I can't remember what it is, but I was looking at them, and and they can sweep as well, right? Like, they don't just have the regular attack, they have sweeps. They can do both. So yeah, like, and they're only 10 more points. Oh, and they got 1 more wound. That was it. So they've got like 1 more wound, 3 more toughness, 2 more strength, the same AP, the enemy are like, they've got lethals. It's just bonkers, right? And they almost have the, like, normally you think Sanguinary Guard are strong because they can move 12. Well, Death Guard can just arrive 6 inches away. Cool. I mean, it removes all the difficulty of jumping across the board. You just point at a unit on the other side of the board, say they're in contagion, I'm just going to arrive 6 inches away from you. Okay. If I was a Death Guard player, I'd be running 3 squads of 3. Because I think at 140 points they are crazy strong. Anyway, yeah, so I think like Dante might be okay, but 2 of his rules are iffy, and the Sanguinary Guard are still very expensive any way you look at them. The toughness 4, I think, is a massive problem. Like, I think in shooting, in melee, they're kind of okay. -1 to hit, -1 to wound. You give them that in shooting, maybe, or -1 to hit, or give them something in shooting because they're just a toughness 4 body. Ironically, I actually think the Death Company, when they were like 31 points per model and only 2 wounds and you could take a squad of 10 of them, I actually think the squad of 10 of them is better than the new version, just because they're gonna die anyway because they're toughness 4 and there's so much 3 damage in the meta. Like, every army I'm playing against, it's like, oh, this is 3 damage, this is 3 damage. I was like, you guys gave these guys an extra wound. It has no value. Anyway, so you're better off taking cheap jump intercessors. In Liberator Assault Group, it seems beneficial to run little units of all the cheap stuff and just don't run the Blood Angels Codex stuff. Like, it's just too expensive. Like, if you want to be competitive, it's better to use the cheap stuff. And very few people are finding interesting use of our other detachments, right? Like, I think at this point I've given up hope thinking Angelic Host or Lost Brethren are getting any buffs. They've been ignored for 2 balanced data slates. Let's take some bets on whether they're going to be ignored for a 3rd. I think they are. I think so. We'll see. So that is the competitive trends for this last few months. So, thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. Please leave me a comment I am going to put a poll on the channel asking you what you'd like to see me do next. Now that I've done 3 of the detachments, I think as it stands right now, you've got to be playing Blood Angels to the very top of your game to win tournaments. 48% is not great. The Codex units are not great. So just keep that in mind. It seems to be the people that are winning are staying clear, and we're somewhat carried by those Vindicator tanks and Inceptors and the Angelic Inherters, and it seems like in Liberator Assault Group it's Jump Back Intercessors and Blade Guard Veterans and maybe Ballistus Dreadnoughts and Pulsars. So that's what you should be looking at if you're going to a tournament in the next few weeks. I did this painting video that is over here, how I battle ready painted Commander Dante, and apparently this video gave me -1 subscribers. So if you haven't watched that video, what I would love you to do is watch it now and tell me why I could get it, or what I need to do to make a better painting video, because this video took me ages to make, like 30 hours it took to make that painting video probably. All the editing, the voiceover, the music, the green screen, the rendering, it was a nightmare. And it lost me a subscriber. It didn't even give me 1 subscriber, it actually gave me -1. I'll put that on the screen right now to prove to you. So if you could leave me a comment on why that video was not good and what I should do to make it better, I'd love that. Guys, I hope you have a great week. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a Patreon link up above. You can buy your wargaming from Element Games in the UK or Wargame Portal. That also does support the channel. You guys have a great week. Leave me a comment in terms of any more Blood Angels videos you would like to see. I've got some plans. I've got a new detachment coming. I'll see you in the next video. By the blood are made strong, my friends. Peace.